US Rugby Happy Hour Live. Interviews with the biggest names in American rugby.
The New England Free Jacks, Major League Rugby champions.
Stepped away, one-on-one to score!
Here are your hosts, Bill Baker and that other guy.
Hello and welcome to US Rugby Happy Hour Live. In just a few minutes, Eagle 517 rugby commentator and co-host of the Rugby Rundown, Will Hooley, joins us to share baking recipes and to talk politics. Wait, hold on. No, sorry. Got that wrong. Will is here to talk about USA men's qualifying for the 27 Rugby World Cup and also the state of rugby in the U.S. Although I don't know right now, something happened where rugby might be a little less toxic. So, politics. Anyway, Fitzy, welcome back. How are you?
That's quite the lead-in. Jeez, Bill.
I haven't seen you. I've been doing this for 2 weeks, but where you been?
I think my internet's about to go out right now, as a matter of fact. Yeah, jeez.
We're gonna burn some bridges tonight, baby.
No way. No, man. Yeah. No.
We are erecting bridges, building bridges. Anyway, Fitzy,
coalition building here in North America.
Cool. I like it.
Little rugby diplomacy, if you will.
I like it. At least south of the border for a bit. Fitzy, I was telling our listeners last week that you were probably at the side of some youth soccer field yelling at your kids. Was I close to being accurate?
If you don't score a goal, you're sleeping outside tonight. They all slept outside. What happens? Yeah, well, it's a performance-oriented house here. You don't score goals in soccer, you're asked to sleep it outside. 70 degrees out here in California, so it doesn't matter. But yeah. Oh,
I'd sleep outside all the time if I could. My wife would probably be like, "Hey, can you go? I hate you. Get out."
You were told to sleep outside, though. Yeah.
Fitzy, we got a lot to talk to tonight with our guest, Will. Mm-hmm. So as much as I'd love to chat with you, I think we should get to him pretty soon. What do you think?
Yeah.
But before we do that, a little business. Listeners, if you are new, or viewers, new to the show, be sure to check out previous episodes of the show. You can listen to it in your favorite podcast player. It's also on YouTube, including shows with MLR's #1 draft pick this year, Will Sherman, USA women's head coach Sione Fukufuka, who just recently announced he's leaving or has left USA Rugby, and also a fun interview with USA prop Tonga Coffee, who just recently signed a deal with Leicester Tigers and a premiership in Europe. I'm hoping he's there by now. I know AJ McGinty's there also in Prem. Hopefully Tonga will be there soon. So check out those interviews. A lot of fun. Fitzy had a great time with those guys. In the meantime, also, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, share with your friends. Follow us on Facebook. If you're going to listen to the podcast replay, every one of these shows is released to the podcast the very next day. Go ahead and follow us on those podcasts. Share it with your friends. Share it with everybody. We have a great time doing this. So Fitzy, what do you think, man? Tonight's introduction song, I promise you, will be the what's the word for it? Earworm? Is that the word for it? It will be earwig? No. It will be stuck in your head for a while. All right. So with that said, I apologize. Roll it.
Will a man so relieved. Cover your ears, kids. He's throwing the F-bomb out there for all to hear. Yeah! Welcome back to the show. Will
Here he is, everybody. Wait. Oh. Wow. I mean, that's an instant classic. That is Spotify top 10.
That's where all the budget's going on this show.
That is incredible.
Actually, Alexa behind me heard it. Alexa is over here, I think, asking me what that song was. I don't know if you heard.
Is there something like image rights, or so that I can take that song and really sort of put my copyrights on it? Because I'd take that. I'd take that all the time.
Technically, this show owns the copyrights, but we might be able to share it with you.
We're going to submit that to the Grammys. We need a
license fee agreement. Oh, wow. Okay. Gentlemen, great to see you. Great to be on.
Wait.
How are you doing?
We say that, Will. Great to see you, Will.
Oh, sorry. I've gone into host mode.
Yeah, it's not your show, man. What are you doing? How are you, Will? It's fantastic to see you, Will. How are you?
I am good. Bill, Fitzy, great to see you. Great to be back on. And what a time to be back on as well. After Sunday, the whole landscape of rugby here in the US, we're all gleaming with now positivity. And because of the result, because of beating Samoa, and because now the USA Eagles are going to the 2027 World Cup. So I am good. It's been an interesting few months, but I'm ready for it now to move forward. Put it that way.
Well, was there ever any doubt, Will? Come on.
Never done.
But Will, you were so pumped. Full disclosure, listeners, Will and I had a halftime pep talk conversation.
We did. We actually did.
Yeah. And what Will doesn't realize, all right, is that he left his phone on for the entire second half.
No.
Yeah. And so we actually have audio of his celebration at the final whistle. Do you want to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This is the real audio from Will's phone.
Yes, the Eagles did it! Hell yes, the Eagles did it! Hell yes, yes! Yes, the US Eagles did it! Hell yes, yes!
Look at that Grammy here a little bit.
Oh, AI is magnificent, isn't it?
Hey, I recorded that myself.
Helped by some auto tuning. Oh man, you know what? That wasn't far off. What I can tell you about the end of the game, Bill Baker was my halftime chat to settle the nerves. That's that's respect, Bill. You get that from me.
Thank you.
And Fitzy, I should have called you as well. Apologies. But then Marcel Bracky was my full-time phone call.
Oh,
nice.
And that was pretty much word for word what was began the conversation. And then I quickly realized that his son, who is, what is West now, is like, oh, geez, I'm forgetting now. 6, 7 years old. Sorry, 6. I mean, I realized that I should have toned it down because I was on loudspeaker. But anyway, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Yeah.
What a result.
I mean, how many different text conversations were you carrying on during the entire match, though?
Anything just to keep me just stood up, alive. I couldn't sit down. Halftime, my wife, bless her, had to leave with my dog because I was so on edge. My dog, he's amazing, but he reacts to anxiousness and whatever, right? So he was trying to jump on me off the couch. It was dangerous stuff. So we had to remove the dog, remove the wife, and just allow me to be in the apartment on myself. And the boys did it. So again, it was worth it.
And
That's it. Come on, everybody. This is it.
And the great thing, Will, by virtue of qualifying for 2027, the men's Eagles are also in for 2031. Obviously, since we are hosting. So, hey, man, we're good. We're good for the next 8 years. So maybe less stressing out for the next 8 years, right?
Isn't that just the most ridiculous thing we've ever said? Anyone involved in USA Rugby to say we've got time? Are you kidding me? We would do things on cycles. We just make sure we qualify, go to the World Cup. Then, oh no, we need to do it again. Look, jokes aside, what this has done for rugby in America, I can't state just how important. And you're right, Fitzy, men's rugby in particular. I don't want to shame the women's game because they're growing in a wonderful rate. But let's call a spade a spade. I love using that phrase at the moment, but we needed that victory. And I think also anyone who was following the Eagles knows about qualification games. That game against Samoa was more important because I just was fearful if we had the away and home leg against Chile. And then you got a repechage when Namibia are involved. It's just like, they're not test matches. They're just like heart racing, heart stopping, heart attack games you just don't want to be involved in. We nipped it in the bud on Sunday. I love it. Love it.
No, well, we'll talk Samoa here in a second, but let's go back. Let's take a little trip back. You were a member of the last USA men's Eagles team to qualify for Rugby World Cup. That was way back in 29 for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Take us back to the moment. I believe it happened in your now adopted hometown of San Diego. I believe you beat our friendly neighbors to the north, Canada.
Friendly neighbors, yes. Now, but Fitzy, I've got to jump in and say that I wasn't actually playing in that game. No, I come to camp just before that. I was kind of, was it just before or just after? But like not quite in the system yet. So, but ultimately, I'd still remember the reaction of that being around USA Rugby at that sort of time. Does that make sense? So, I don't want to take away from the likes that was Todd Clever's last game in an Eagles jersey. What a brilliant way to sign off. Sent us into the World Cup in 2019. But now I'm obviously, because of that experience, I'm excited to now see and know what the lads are now going to experience now. And it started off with a load of beers in Denver, which was just after the game, and now the real hard work and prep is exciting to push forward with.
Well, a lot has obviously changed in 2019 going to the 27 Rugby World Cup. We now have 24 teams in there. So is it safe to say it's easier to get in, or is this hard? Still is hard.
I mean, no qualification is easy. Let me tell you that much. No. And I've played in qualification games. Obviously, the expansion has, created an opportunity maybe that is, do you even say easier than last World Cup qualifying merry-go-round? Obviously, I know South Americans are there's being chat out there that they're not all too happy, but I still argue that someone like Chile is very much can still qualify, and they've got those opportunities. It's the way it's done. Like, it's the way that the Pacific Nations Cup is used now as this qualification tool. It's the same that you would say with the Asian side of things. Hong Kong are now going to the World Cup because of their pathway. You can only deal with what's in front of you. But like, again, with the Americas and with the brilliant sort of rise of South American rugby, like, qualifying has just become tougher. There's no doubt about that, whether you've got 20 teams or 24 teams going to a World Cup. Right.
You know what's funny? Well, Fitzy and I make our notes for tonight. We don't show up, with our hands on our butts. What are we going to talk about? I mean, sometimes. But one thing we didn't put down in our notes, Fitzy, is Samoa. And I feel like we should at least talk about the match for a second. Because we're so excited about the future, Will. It's like, oh, okay, we're moved on, this and that. We got it, whatever. So let's do this. Let's talk about the match. Just brief a moment here, Will. I mean, talk about like some of the pros, some of the cons also that stood out in that match.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a roller coaster of a game. I mean, let's just call it. It's a typical USA Eagles qualification match, which comes with highs and lows. And I think you're looking at Samoa, and they'll think that they will be really annoyed at themselves going into that first half, the end of the first half. Eagles were up against it. You look at the territory stat, the possessions stats. Samoa were really on top of us in a lot of areas, and they had some missed kicks. Rodney Yona, my heart goes out to him. What a great guy, what a great player, a good kicker. Just had an off day, That's unfortunately the world of being a kicker. But the Eagles were under pressure. But what I loved is you could sense there was something within where the physicality went through the roof. And it was the defensive decision-making was way better than it been previously in the PNC. I did question a lot what was happening against Japan, cutting in from the outside when you've got so much space still to cover. I'm not going to get too technical, giving easy balls over the top. And Japan just lapped that up. The Eagles didn't give really like genuinely easy opportunities within their defensive system. We can talk about discipline in a minute. But then in terms of the set piece, the set piece was night and day. I mean, massive credit has to go to the players, to the forwards coach, Nick Easter, I'm sure was massive part of simplifying, and I'm sure Scott Lawrence, I know as well, simplifying the line out, taken brilliantly. Mano Redlinghuis, how great was he in the air? How great was Jason Dahm? I just thought those guys led that line out so well, and it made such a difference. The scrum, there was just such a character of hard work and grit, which I'm not saying that wasn't there before, but it really came out in that game against Samoa, and you could sense there was the belief was building as the game went on, and we might come on to it again in a minute. When Scott, I had talked to Scott and how they really planned that the last 20 minutes at altitude, that was when they were going to unleash. Substitutes are made at the right time, and the Eagles, by the end of the game, there was some really clinical play. How many times have we used that word for an Eagles performance? Clinical. During the match, not just the end. I remember that first try was beautiful, but yeah, the last try right at the end for me summed it all up. And the scrum, the defense of the scrum, and attacking scrum to Samoa, the kick through from Ruben. He didn't panic and try and dive in it. No, he played the territory. We got on top. There was unbelievable work rate, and work rate summed up by Caleb Geiger. He just scrummed. The big man had just been in the scrum, and then he ran 70 meters to get the pass off Ruben and score under the post pretty much. Game over. I flipped the table, me on my own screaming, and it was joyous. There was so much good, plenty to work on, and there was also some really standout performances, which I want to know from you guys what you thought as well from those players.
Well, I'll jump in really quick, Fitzy. I'm sorry, because I'm going to forget if I don't jump in now. You said a minute ago, Will, the last 20 minutes. That's something that's been really hard for this team over the years. Yeah. A full 80. And for me, when I saw Geiger running in at 120 miles an hour, that meant a lot to me. I felt, okay. Now, Samoa did not have the strongest side they probably could have fielded, but it could be any match, it could be any game, any team you face, that kind of thing. But the fact that they played a full 80 is extremely promising. And that's the biggest thing that stuck out to me. Sorry.
Totally agree. Yeah. Sorry, Fitz, you go.
No, all those names are great. And a player that came immediately to my mind was a guy that was pressed into action early into the match when, unfortunately, Chris Helsenbeck had to come off because of an HIA. But you talk about a guy like Luke Hardy, who over the last maybe 18 months, 2 years or so, pundits have criticized Hardy's play in MLR and maybe at the international level. But you said the word grit. I think it was such a gutsy performance from Luke throughout the entire match to come in off the bench super early, probably when he wasn't quite expecting to come in such a tense match. Great kick out passes. Yeah, he had a couple shots at goal and maybe didn't go. Had a few that did go in. Scored a great try. Took a knee to the rib cage. I mean, just and all quietly. And I don't have insight into the camp, but you never heard anything bad about the makeup of the guy. The guy continued to show up, continued to do his job, and he stepped up on the biggest stage when we needed him the most. So in my mind, hats off to Luke Hardy. If I ever see him anywhere, he's got free beers on me.
Ditto everything you've just said there, Fitzy. In my nervousness while I was only standing, I took to Twitter or X because it was the only way of calming myself, and then calling Bill, by the way, that also. But I did mention that that game was perfect for someone like Luke Carty. It actually really was. He has a really good communication to his game, and I mean, like, as a number 10, you got to have that. Everyone's got to have that, but he is really good, and he has that excellent kicking game. And you're right, Fitzy, it didn't always go to plan off the tee. There was one he kicked out on the full, but I just thought, like, I watched the game a bit differently. How are the 9 and 10 managing the game? And I thought Ruben and Luke Carty, Ruben's kicking was far better in the second half than in the first half. They managed the game really well. And Scott said to me, you mentioned about when he scored, and he actually took a bit of I think it was actually to his thumb. And Scott just said, like, a lot of, I don't know whether he was maybe putting it my way, he was saying a lot of number 10s wouldn't have got up with that. They were just got off being injured. And I was like, hold on, who are you trying to look at here? Was that me when I played? But no, Luke just cracked on. He knew the importance. He would have been, and I spoke to him a little bit afterwards on text, and he was gutted about the kicks. That's the professional he is. He's just like, left my kicking boots at home. Thank God it didn't come down to that. But I said to him, it didn't come down to that because of the way he managed that game in loads of facets, whether he had the ball or not. Defensively, he was really good as well, by the way. He was lining up in the big channels against a big like OJ Noah, for example, of Samoa. He was making tackles. And like, I just cannot agree with you more. He deserves a lot of praise for a guy that was only brought into camp, Bill, like 2-3 weeks ago. He wasn't even part of the plan for this qualification period. So that's a credit to the man and a credit to his performance.
Well, let's since we're on number 10s right now, let's talk a little about the roster, Will, and Fitzy as well. Obviously McGinty wasn't available for this past match. But generally speaking, look at that, the depth. Hilsenbeck, Carty's played a great match of the day. But I just want to say, we're going to go through some players here. We're here in Houston's Davey Koser will be eligible in 2027. Fitzy, I feel like we've talked to him about that over the for the last 5 years. Are you eligible yet? But where's our depth at fly half right now, Will? I mean, it doesn't seem to be anyone else past the names we just mentioned.
Look, I think Chris Hilsenbeck has had a wonderful year. And I was delighted that he was really going to get some opportunity. It was tough for him just going to get a first cap. I think his first cap was against England in DC. DC. Good luck. Yeah. But he had a really good year at the Chicago Hounds. But then Chris is getting on to 35 now. Luke is, I think, in his 30s. Or just turned 30. Sorry, Luke, if you're 29. But you're right. Like, where are we looking? And David Kutz, I had heard about this, and that's a really potentially good option to look at moving forward. What a complete player, a player that can play in the World Cup coming up in 27 once he is deemed domestic, and then of course 2031. It's a really specialist position, which is tough. You need that rugby IQ. And to have someone like Davey amongst maybe the squad soon enough, I think is going to be incredibly beneficial to Scott and the Eagles moving forward.
Sorry, so Will, so let's look ahead a little bit here. We've got the November internationals coming up with at least one match publicly confirmed, right, against Scotland in Scotland there. As we talked about, we know qualification secured already. Some could argue that, results, they don't matter that much. But we've got the draw for the 27 World Cup taking place in December with, I think seedings for each pool depended on World Rugby rankings at the time. So put on your coaching cap here for a second, Will. How does one approach these matches that are coming up in November, knowing that, you don't want to slip, but you also want some performances? How do you approach these in November?
Well, I think Fitz is a realizer that the household around you is hopefully not falling apart. Well, I can see you can have conversations with kids. Sorry. I hope all is good. I'm joking. Hey, we're live. Doesn't matter. We're going there. We're live. Let's do it. And it's I think it's a brilliant challenge, and it's a great challenge to have when there's a little less pressure off. Imagine, I think to myself, and I can only speak from experience, we didn't qualify against Uruguay in 2021, and then we suddenly lost a bunch of players to playing overseas because it wasn't an international window, and then we go and have the All Blacks. I mean, don't get me started on that game in terms of the logistics behind that. That will be, I might get cancelled. But what I'm really trying to say is I think that's in the window. The Eagles have a bit of time off now. They have some work. And I spoke to Jack Ascaro today as I'm looking to try and do a written piece on him. And the excitement of having that less pressure, but to really build as a squad, I think you will see some people get a chance in the November period, which is great and needs to happen as we look towards 2027. But also, all the building you've done can't just be because you wanted to qualify. Scott said to me about the Gemini project was about not just qualification, it's about the performance in 2027. And I know that what happens to get to that performance that you want in 2027 is what you do now, is the games and the windows that you get now. And you really build yourself. You're not attacking to try and not lose, which sometimes is the case with qualification. You're not building a defensive plan just to try and get by, taking on Chile, Samoa, or whatever. You're doing something actually a little bit extra and finding our identity properly, going up against some top quality tier 1 sides and having the confidence within the group saying, hey guys, we're building now all towards 2027.
Well, so best case scenario, Will, for seeding in the World Cup pool, best case would be 3rd, worst would be 4, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, is that where, do we care that much?
I don't know. Ask me that question maybe in a month's time. As it currently stands, no, I don't care because we qualified. By the way,
right, we got there.
let's just go back to that. We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Bill's never satisfied. I'm never satisfied. You can't satisfy Bill.
Jeez, come on.
We wouldn't have the show. I'd be like, oh, I'm good.
I think, but it's yeah, we need something to talk about. No, I think ultimately, it's something as well that might be within the minds of Scott and his team talks in camp, being like, okay, part of the project going towards 2027 is we want the highest ranking we can get. This is going to, impact us for selection at the World Cup in those potential groups. So that's why November also matters. I don't know whether that is talked about. I hope maybe it is. But for the moment, no, I don't really care at the moment. I'll be honest.
Well, let's jump at the players for a second. I want to talk about some of the big guys. You had the luxury of playing with Nick, Greg Peterson,
Samu.
Oh my gosh, that's right. You actually played. Did you play with or against them in the Prem? Didn't you?
I've done everything. I was going to say I've done everything with Samu. That sounds wrong. I have played with. I played with and I've played against, but I only played against Samu when he played for Seattle. Interesting love. So yeah,
still a beast. Still a beast of a man.
Oh,
I shook his hand once, and I feel like I was grabbing someone's face. That's how big his hand is. Anyway, so anyway, big men, specifically second row, and nothing against Marno, Dom. You did great jobs at 4 and 5.
Great
job. But looking at international lock these days, there's a minimum 6'6" in height. They're bigger and faster these days. These guys getting 6'8" maybe. So like this year's number 1 draft pick with Will Sherman, he's 6'5", 235. He needs to put some weight on. Do we need to go after offensive linemen, defensive line in football? I mean, where are these locks coming from?
Power forwards. Yeah.
Well, let's just talk about the here and now. I am really excited about Rick Rose. Rick was in that camp. I went down to Chula Vista when they were training, leading up to that Japan game. And he was in there and was in there throughout the PNC. Fantastic. I hope obviously with the loss of Miami, he is a player that will get picked up pretty quickly. I love the fact he's a wise head on young shoulders. I love the fact as well that he is also in the same bracket as someone like what Will Sherman said on your show. I do listen, guys. You do a great job, so that's why I tune in. And he said, Will Sherman, didn't he? He said about wanting to be a line-out caller. So I know what we're saying. You want a 6'10", 6'11" second row. They're great. And heck, we might find someone like that. But I want to know someone who can also run a line out. And the reality is that is a hard thing to find here in the US. Nick Savetta was my guy back when I was playing. Nick ultimately was underrated. I think now you're seeing that in terms of just how good a job he did at running a line out. But I think Rick Rose, though, from what I'm hearing, is that sort of guy who does have he's really educating himself. He's absolutely bought in to kind of be that lineup caller. He is a tall presence. You're going to see as well the potential of, forgive me, I forget his first name, but Mathy from the Pro D2 in France. Oh my God, he plays at Bill, come on, this is where you come alive for me here.
Namafu. You're not talking about
Matthew, sorry. My bad. Namafu. Yes, sorry.
He's in top 14 now.
Yeah. But ultimately, I'm hearing good rumor that he is ultimately will be coming back into the frame or coming into the frame for the US. again, it's amazing what happens when World Cup qualification, occurs. It's like the squad can get bigger because of the road to 2027. But as I say, Rick Rose, I'm really excited about. I think Mano really came to light. By far his best game in an Eagles jersey on Sunday. And then Jason Dahm, let's just briefly talk about the fact of who did play. Jason Dahm was outstanding. I hear in camp as well how well he led, not just in terms of the communication of how they were going to play, but the communication of actually the elephant in the room of the pressure and how he communicated about dealing with that pressure, understanding it, but also making sure they're focused on tasks of doing a rugby match. That, when I heard that, and I heard that from Jack Ascaro from Good Source, that for me is like, wow, what a leader. That is brilliant. So, yeah, we need to look to the future, but also proud of the guys who stepped up in the second row on Sunday.
And so one more thing for me, I'm going to toss to Fitzy because I've been taking up way too much time with the mic of sound. I'm going to list off some players that have been missing MIA for many reasons. I don't want you to talk about all of them. Grab one or two and tell me what they could have offered to the U.S. in the past few matches. We're going down Jama Fanana Schultz, Joey Mano, David Anu, obviously contract issues. I'm still missing TT Lamasatelli. You won't mention that at all. But Nate Oxberger, Mooneyham, Turnbull, Mon, Sean McNulty, Villy, Nola Brown, Young. But talk about any of those players, I think, and what they could have offered to our team over the last month.
But Fitzy, stay in it. Don't worry about it. No, honestly, there's I just seen your T-shirt, by the way, Bill. I love that. Yeah,
Thanks,
love that. And actually, I was going to put on. Forgive me, I realized it was in the room and I didn't have time. But that is my.
There you go.
Signed by all the squad. The squad well that year also. Anyway, sorry, we'll go back to what we're talking about. Look, all of them would have offered something great. And you're right, there's and I don't know everything in terms of why that player contractually wasn't able to play for the US at that time, like Davey Anu, or Joe Mano. Again, like ultimately from what I heard from Scott, I think you might have heard in the selection sort of announcement we did on the Rugby Rundown, like he genuinely just said he won't be in the country. So it's hard to say that the whys these guys didn't play or ultimately injury. I think they would have all offered something. And how exciting is it that hopefully all those guys are now, if they are fit, if they can sort out their contract negotiations or family situations or whatever it might be, that they are now also part of the playing pool going towards 2027. So sorry I've scooted around that, Bill, but they all could offer in any sort of department.
Yeah, I was just going to mention one name that I don't know how we've overlooked it, but Sam Collins been out for a little bit with an injury. Right?
Crazy.
Talk about good young locks there, flankers. He's got that position flexibility, which is great. Any idea, Will? You're not the team doctor, but what you're hearing from camp about his availability, at least for November?
I honestly don't know. I did drop Sam a message because I know obviously he had hello, how you doing? That is one happy USA Eagles fan, I can tell.
That's right. That's
great to see you. That's the next generation like that. Maybe in time for 2033 World Cup.
She plays. Yeah, she plays touch.
Brilliant.
She just took my phone too. Dang, she's sneaky. She just took my phone.
Yeah. Probably wanting to watch Alona's latest Instagram or
exactly.
TikTok, something like that. Yeah. But I almost forgot the question. Yes, you were saying about Sam Goller. Don't know the complete ins and outs. Gutted that he missed out. I know he was gutted that he missed out. And I can't remember if it was surgery that he's just recently had. I honestly don't know, in answer to your question.
Hey, Will, any word? Do you know anything about where Bonas is going?
No, I don't. I know. I think some people come to me with like I'm the voice of reason and wisdom.
You never know.
And unfortunately, this is where I'm probably going to lose a bunch of followers on some platform because actually I know nothing. No, I don't. I think Benny. I don't know whether he picked up a knock in terms of injury. I can't remember actually from that Canada game. But no, I mean, I hope for Benny's sake, he's back in MLR. I mean, what a great leader he is. What a great operator he is. He also runs the line out as well. So all in all, I don't know where he's going, but I really hope that he's very much around next season. All
right, guys, let's get into the good stuff. This is the stuff that people like and pisses them off. All right, well, USA men qualified, obviously. We've been talking about that for 30 minutes now. Is it safe to say, or am I going just spitfiring here, that the USA men qualifying may have saved MLR? Those mix at all?
I mean, look, let's first and foremost say I really believed in when we say saved. I think it saved a lot of areas rugby here in America. I also don't want to bring the women into that. As I said earlier in the show, they're on the brilliant trajectory, and I've I think they're only going to get better. Albeit I was gutted they missed out on the quarterfinal. But no, 100%. It definitely it massively helps. Particularly after the news on Thursday with Houston. The elephant in the room. I mean, how tough was that on the players? Who would have then had to go and play on the Sunday? And again, spoke to Scott off air, and credit to those guys. I mean, can we just shout out to the Eagles players who have had to go through probably the mental battle of some of those things that have gone on, and business decisions are business decisions. Sport is tough here in the US, and these ups and downs happen. Saying that in as best way as I can say, but I definitely feel that game. I celebrated knowing not only for the guys going to a World Cup, for us, me, you, Bill, Fitzy, anyone who has any association with rugby, whether you work in it or talk about it, it means a lot. Yeah. It means a lot, and to say it saved the MLR. I can't say that because I think the plan was still always in place. This is a 2026 season, but has it helped? Has it helped the feeling in the air of the boardroom, of the office, of me sat here on my desk doing the work that I do? 100%. 100%.
Nice.
So, Will, you earlier today, there was an interview that you did on great show, the Rugby Rundown. Very excited. You chatting with head coach Scott Lawrence. Maybe a clip, I don't know, maybe taken out of context, maybe just edited funny. Obviously, and you told everyone, go back, watch the full interview. And you should anyway, just not right now during the show. But certainly after this show is over.
After this,
go watch the Rugby Rundown on YouTube, your favorite
podcast. Yeah, listen. Yeah.
Exactly. Scott said something like, hey, it's time to start getting behind the U.S., right? Not funding Canadian or Pacific Islander pathways. Now, I think maybe that got worded a little funky. Some folks, particularly who are big fans of Canadian rugby, and I think we're all agree that a strong Canadian side is also good for the U.S. because, for the men's Eagles to get better, the men's Canada needs to get better too, right? I think that's an obvious statement there. I think some of the issues and concerns is that is this diminishing Canadian presence in MLR? It seemed to rankle a few folks. I'm not going to ask you to speak on behalf of Scott, but what is your take now that clip is out there? What do you think Scott was maybe trying to say? What's your take on what maybe Scott was trying to say without putting words in his mouth, and maybe clearing up some of the hey, everyone, let's pump the big brakes here for a second. Yeah, let's relax here.
Let's relax a little bit. Hey, no, Fitzy, it's a completely valid question, and you've got to remember, I was talking to a USA fired up, patriotic head coach, and at the end of the day, Scott is allowed to say what he wishes to say, whether people agree or disagree. And I know there'll be both camps to that in terms of, what he was saying. And yeah, the context obviously was when he was talking about Gemini and what this has done. And we use Gemini because of the moonshot and the projects that he says, talks about, qualification 2027 and the whole build of development of his players, his player pool. And he obviously wants to see the best of that in Major League Rugby. It's the domestic competition. I understand that. That's totally understandable. I don't think overly what he kind of said was completely out of disrespect. And also, I definitely want to make sure that, yeah, you're totally right. Canada Rugby, I'm delighted they're in the World Cup. I never forget, sat there when we lost to Uruguay in 2021. We still would then go and play Chile because we found out that day that Canada had lost to Chile, so they didn't qualify for 2023. And I promise you, in that changing room, we were annoyed that we lost to Canada to Uruguay, but we also were in that changing room oh man, that's not a good look. that Canada didn't qualify. So clear that up. Delighted that Canada are going to move forward and also be there in 2027. Great players. I love playing against them. Never lost them, by the way. Just want to stick that out there personally as a US player. But no, great friends. So look, I think the other thing is also to mention as well is obviously stuff has come out for whatever reason there is. I honestly come on this podcast genuinely telling you, like, I don't know the definites. Nothing has been cemented. I tell you that much for truth. There is nothing that has been cemented. So what else? What is being talked about has maybe been talked about, but nothing has definitely been put in place. I'm sure there'll be ongoing discussions. And yeah, I understand, but I also understand from Scott's perspective in terms of wanting the best for the American talent playing in the United States in Major League Rugby, and I'm sure he's also looking at those players like who have lost clubs, like a Seth Smith, Emmanuel Alberts, Benny Benassa that you talked about. That he really wants to make sure that plays minutes and plays rugby. And there's an investment from those groups. They're currently in MLR that is obviously here in the US. So without sort of trying to completely curve around your question, Fitzy, like the end of the day, Scott is very allowed to say what he is allowed to say, and what has been said outside of that in terms of other shows. Respect to everyone involved who talks about rugby, from Matt McCarthy, Brian Ray, you guys. I don't generally have a respect, and this is something that has been heard, but at the moment it's nothing concrete. So it's hard for me to even make comment on overall, and I'm sorry that I'm playing Switzerland on that, but that's the case.
Go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, again, yeah, Scott's entitled to have an opinion, and he's one voice in the conversation, but ultimately that will come down to the owners in MLR, who, as we've known since the league has kicked off, have been fronting millions of dollars and losing millions of dollars. They're trying to run a profitable business. It's not profitable yet, and I know there's a lot that needs to happen to make that work. So obviously a big broadcast deal, but it's easy to tell people how to spend their millions of dollars if you don't have any skin in the game. And maybe this is a chance here. Maybe people don't like to say this, but hey, where are the wealthy business folks in Canada that want to start an MLR club? Raise your hand. And I loved what Bill Webb did in Toronto, but they left the league in 2023. We're now going into 2026. Let's get a group of business folks in Canada to put together an MLR squad and put up their money. This league is benefiting. This league is benefiting everybody, but there are right now at the moment 7 owners who are hemorrhaging cash. That's benefiting Canadian players and U.S. players and other international players. If we want to pull it all together, then it's going to take a little bit of some folks in Canada to put up some money and put an MLR club. And if that needs to be some funds from World Rugby, go for it. And if that's an unpopular opinion, that's fine. But I think folks need to be a little grateful and thankful that there's still an MLR happening for players to have a chance to actually play in a high performance environment. That's what
I just think, Bill, before you come in there, I think that Fitzy, that's a really rational point. And I think that's probably a tough one to argue with. I'm sure conversation is happening across the board, and things will be taking place in a way that finds the middle ground in whatever that might be, or the right decision from the board members. And I can tell you now, like the board members that are here, that are remaining, they are absolutely fully committed that 2026 and beyond is going to happen for rugby in the United States as it stands at the moment. So whether there's additions to that or whatever it might be, that there is no doubt going to be changes overall next year. That's just, I mean, come on, just read the room. There's 7 teams at the moment. So that is, unfortunately, things are going to have to change in all sorts of areas, by the way, like, not just we're talking about something operational, of which, by the way, I keep coming back to is not being cemented yet. And I do think that is definitely a statement that needs to kind of get out, albeit, I sit here in San Diego, probably not knowing all the truths and ins and outs, but I'm sure something will come out soon enough from the league that will explain everything.
And the question also we could ask about Major League Rugby is, is it a domestic competition? But for who? Or is it a continental competition between two countries? And also, Will, I think you and I briefly spoke about this already. Down 4 clubs, a number of domestic players could be out of jobs if nothing is done about the international slots. You're looking at, again, Seth Smith, whoever else. I can't imagine Seth Smith won't get a job somewhere, but plenty of others that we don't talk about on a regular basis in these shows could be out of the loop, where Scott Lawrence isn't watching them play on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon for the MLR club. So there's definitely an argument there. I don't really have a question here. I guess maybe the question is Major League Rugby an American competition, or is it a North American competition? Anyone?
Yeah. No. I understand your point, and it's going back to when Fitzy asked about what Scott maybe said by that is. Yeah. And as I say, it's obviously it's media, and he made his point, and he made that comment within that. Please go and watch. There's so much more just to that interview than just that one line. Yeah. Listen, yeah. So, and that's the classic case of media, But you've got to understand from his point of view, like you've just mentioned it, and sorry, Fitzy, you also just mentioned, like he's going to be worried about the American players. As by the way, anyone involved in Rugby Canada is going to be worried about the Canadian players and anyone associated with. So, like this is always going to spill into this if we start talking in the way that it's been talked about. Is probably the best way of saying it.
One more for you, Will, and then I'm going to toss to Fitzy here. But the news about World Rugby investing another 250, 270 million into rugby here in America. Do you know any more than the rest of us do about how that money's been allocated? Is it going into marketing? Is it going into broadcast? Is it going into your pockets, Will? Obviously, I mean, you're rolling in the cash.
I wish. The hell. So I'm there in the holla, right?
Anything you can share about that money? I mean, how is the USA going to be able to use it?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, is people got to realize that World Rugby will begin to have a physical presence here in the United States, building up to the 2031-33 World Cup. So I have no doubt that operationally, that money will probably, and by the way, this is just me putting, just me as a person, not MLR hat on, not USA Rugby hat on, just thinking like that is going to be probably a large amount of the money to activate the programs that are needed. I think we all saw from that article, the Sports Business Journal, that there was some key areas, wasn't there? There was sort of development within the community, the women's game being one of them, having meaningful matches, or what I would say meaningful, that's not the right word, but bigger profile games in the US, like we're seeing Ireland against New Zealand in November in Chicago. The quick answer is I don't really know where that's all going, but I think I think USA fans have probably got to be mindful that 250 million is not just going to go into USA Rugby's pocket. I mean, that's just the truth. But at the same time, that would be all part of the investment of setting up shop of the different areas, departments that World Rugby will work alongside USA Rugby involved in the growth towards those World Cups.
World Rugby, if you need my Cash App, I will send it to you. Just sprinkle a little bit on there. But Will, you mentioned this earlier as we were talking, as we started our conversation. A couple of days ago, World Rugby announced that it was cutting some funding, maybe 14% ago. That gets sprinkled out to South American countries. I'm paraphrasing there a little bit. Understandably, folks in and around those circles aren't too happy about it because, I mean, it'd be remiss of us not to talk about the success that Chile and Uruguay and others in South America have had building up their programs without a ton of resources. But Super Rugby's America's great competition that's raised up the level of play in South America, which is good for everyone. Maybe this is just my way to kind of get into it, but I would love to, you would participate in this competition. I would love to get the America Rugby Championship back. That was such a fun regional competition, and really try and build that up as this region's, Six Nations, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe this is pie in the sky, but what are the chances of an America's Rugby Championship coming back?
Well, first of all, Fitzy, I loved playing in it. And the unfortunate thing for me is when I was playing my domestic rugby in the UK, I couldn't play in all the games because it was in not always in an international window.
Mm-hmm.
but honestly, I thought it was a fantastic tournament. It certainly did the US a lot of good during that sort of 2016 to 2018, 19 window. We won it twice. But that will certainly be like a World Rugby sort of conversation. And I also got to wonder, World Rugby's conversations with MLR, with SLAR as well. Is there something on the horizon where the two entities could potentially come together on a cup competition or one-off or whatever it might be? Maybe that's something of discussion. I think World Rugby would have to be at the forefront of that, obviously to around the finances. But I don't think you can ever say never to any of these ideas. And I see a lot of positives with having more international games. Obviously, you've got to make sure that doesn't, interrupt with the window of the domestic competitions. So previously, obviously, American Rugby Championship ran between that kind of end of February into March, beginning of April. That's in an MLR window. So where it would sit, and it's the same for SLAR, by the way, as well. So I think I wouldn't know. I'm becoming very useless on this podcast today, but at the same time, I think those conversations are definitely either happening or will be happening.
A few more questions for you here. We'll let you go. I don't know if this is the question or not, because I'm not very useful either. No, you've been useful. Sorry, you've been great.
Thanks.
But after the summer international window's over, we got all these American players here in the United States who don't have Major League Rugby. They don't have international rugby till November. Otherwise, they're working out. Maybe they're working at their father's construction company, whatever else. Any thoughts at all what it would cost to have, I don't know, a touring American side, let's say, of the players who are not playing their trade overseas that could play an 8-match series, something like SLAR, whatever else. It seems like something that obviously takes a ton of money because you got to pay these players, not just travel expenses, but full-time players. So I do think, Will, that the money you're getting from World Rugby, you should invest in that possibility.
Yeah, and again, could there be the use of that? I know as well with the World Rugby money, there's definitely a basis of the growth of the game in the country rather than just like the team. And I mean that in terms of the legacy that is hopefully going to stay on post the World Cup. And making sure that programs have been set up, whether it's in schools or whatever it might be, or in the women's game as well, as I've mentioned.
Right.
But I do think sometimes fans are not sometimes completely understanding with, you mentioned it about money. Like this is a serious financial, commitment. And I can only bring it back to the MLR owners. Like they have poured a heck of a lot of money into this, whether they've lost it, whether they've gained from it in whatever ways it might be. Don't underestimate that. And whatever people might say about my hat goes off to the people who have invested in rugby in this country, because they're all buying into that vision of 2031 and 2033. So I guess, Bill, what I'm trying to say is yes, you make a good rational point of what could be and whatever. But also, funding has to come from probably all sorts of areas, just to, rather than just saying, oh, well, rugby, you just do it, or saying to the MLR board, oh, why don't you just pay for it? Sport's expensive out here. Let the travel alone. So, those are logistical challenges that require a lot of money, which people who are paid far more than me will have to make decisions on.
All right, so we're going to get you a couple more things here. One, I want to talk about MLR for a second, really fast. Okay, currently 7 teams in the league, which is what the league started with, their inaugural season. Yeah. With 1 or 2 more, Utah possibly on shaky ground in relation to continuing in 26. Can we go with 6 teams? A recent interview with Alex McAleby from the Free Jacks with Jacks Rangers. He's extremely confident we're going to have a season no matter what.
Yep, I can say that as well.
Can we do it? Okay, thank you. And also with that said, we're also hearing potential return of a Canadian team, which we might have touched on a minute ago. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like we are all set in the department, whatever you work in. It is like we're going ahead towards 2026. Plenty of things to come out and say in terms of statements of scheduling and whatever it might be coming up. Stay tuned. It's coming out soon enough. And then as for I understand there's the rumblings of Utah and whatever it might be. I'm quietly positive about that. That's what I would say. And then the Canadian business, isn't this just come like loads around? And what a fantastic, by the way, like how brilliant would it be? Can we just bring the conversation to be like, how great would it be Rugby Canada putting in a team into Major League Rugby? Like I think I thoroughly enjoy playing Toronto away and the Toronto Arrows. We mentioned Bill Webb and how brilliant that was, and I think that would obviously be a great thing for Canadian rugby and also maybe for the league as well, if it were to happen or whatever that might be going forward this next year after that. I don't know. I genuinely don't. So I look at it all positively. 2026 is in my mind, and from what I hear, is set up. Is ready to go. Just when I say set up, the intricacies, the scheduling, the whatever it might be, is probably yet to be found out. Obviously, Thursday was probably a little bit of a step backwards, but at the same time, the board are committed. The owners are committed, and albeit now with the World Cup win or qualification, I should say, I think the excitement needs to now turn. I'm a positive, optimistic. I think, how can we not be now? Like, I understand all the sort of negativity and whatever it might be, but like, let's take that step towards positivity because we now have things to be positive about.
Well, Will, let's build off this last minute here. This is the State of the Union for you, Will.
Yes.
What message, we're talking about positivity, what message can you give to the general American rugby, we'll throw in Canada too, to the general North American rugby public
good.
that can help put their mind at ease about rugby here in this great North American content? Go ahead. Take it
Well,
over.
North America are going to the Rugby World Cup. Let's put them all together like that. That's fantastic. Fantastic for the players. They have really something to go towards.
Well, I want to feel energy like Winston Churchill kind of energy from you. Come on, let's go.
There's no point me doing Winston Churchill talking about North America. That's
true.
Whatever.
Abe Lincoln.
Even though Donald Trump is in London at the moment, but no, like, and as I mentioned, like that board of directors, I can say proudly and honestly, they are absolutely committed, and that's what you're going to see. I'm sure going forward in the next very soon you'll hear that, and I just think if there's nothing else to take away, it's like things are going to move forward. As for the Canadian piece we've talked to today, I don't know the complete things around that will come out soon enough, just take some positivity going forward, because for all American fans, particularly out there, we've had a lot to be negative about over the last few years and even the last couple of months. So let's get going and move forward. It's amazing how quickly next year will come round and rugby will be played.
I gotta tell you,
The Eagles did it! Hell yes, yes! The Eagles did it! Hell yes, yes! Yes! Yes, yes! Yes!
Will Hooley, man, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Great information. You're amazing. We shall chat again later. And man, stop swearing so much. It's just not good for
I'm just passionate, all right? I'm just happy. I'm being positive.
All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward, everyone, tune into the Rugby Rundown. Check out the Scott Lawrence interview. It's great stuff. And Will, again, thanks again, and we'll chat again soon.
See you guys. Take care. Love to see what you're doing. Awesome.
Thanks, Will.
All right, that said, Fitzy, I'm going to let you go right away. I think it's a good time to call it a night. Hour long.
Yes, 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 the U.S.